Okay, let's begin. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Claire Fenello. I'm the Executive Director at EVCOM. Very pleased to have you all with us today. This afternoon's EVCOM session is Sustainability in a Virtual World. Before I pass you over to the panel, I would just like to pass on a few details as to how the session is going to run. They are 45 minutes long generally. We may tip over a few minutes towards the end, but generally we try to keep it to 45 minutes. The session will be facilitated by Megan Napier-Andrews from BCD. And we will be taking questions, and if you could please put those and post those questions into the Q&A facility. I will then make sure that those questions get forwarded and seen by the panel so that they can answer them accordingly. The session is recorded, just so that you know, and will be posted on the EVCOM website as of tomorrow after about midday, so can be readily available post-event as well. And then just to say once again, thank you very much for joining us. And if you have any suggestions or ideas for other seminars and webinars that EVCOM can put on in the future, please do let us know. We'd love to hear from you. They are for our members and for the wider community, so we'd love to hear from you. And on that note, I would like to pass you over to Megan, who will introduce the panel. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and welcome everyone. Thank you, Claire. It's a true pleasure to be involved in this important discussion today regarding sustainability and how it fits into our industry moving forward. We have a fabulous group of industry leaders who are all passionate about this topic. So to start, each panelist will take a moment to introduce themselves and why they wanted to be part of today's session or why they're passionate about sustainability. So let's start with Sam.
Hello everyone, lovely to be here. So I used to be MD of Eco Events, you probably know me as MD of Eco Events. We've changed brands to Syntiro Associates, and what we do with a team behind me, we develop and deliver creative, progressive approach to sustainability. So whether you need an ISO, B Corp certification, carbon footprinting, that's what we do.
Great, thank you. Rick?
Everyone, good afternoon. My name is Rick Stainton, founder and group executive director at Smyle. Smyle's been one of the leaders in sustainability for, I guess, 8-9 years now in the sort of live events sector, including a number of initiatives. I guess the main one that you may be aware of is the Sustainable Events Summit, which we did a number of years ago for sort of 3 years, which, you know, encouraged conversations, discussion, sharing of best practice, and just generally got the conversation going so that clients could tell us whilst they're on stage what they needed from us as an industry to develop better association with best practice from sustainability. So, you know, very, very pleased to be here, and thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Next, Nikki.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the Bar Experience Development Director from IMEX Group. We hold 2 trade shows a year, one in May in Frankfurt and one in September in Las Vegas. And we are very passionate about sustainability, and we have been trying very hard to ensure that both shows are very sustainable.
Thank you. And last but not least, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Andrew Reid. I work with Shelton, Fleming, and I'm a director there, been there for 5 years. I think, like many of you, work in the events and experiential side of things. My role is one of strategic planning, and I've worked quite a lot in recent years on the sustainability side of things, given that's the push that's coming both from the public, but really from all our major B2B clients. So we've been hosting workshops, and we're working in really a more collaborative way today. From a very early stage in the briefing process. In fact, way beyond even a project, working with clients in workshops and campfires to really, you know, understand actually how they want to approach it and what's the best way to do it from our perspective in there. So it's a much more collaborative tack we're taking. So yeah, that's where we sit in this. The other thing to say is, as a company, we've integrated in the last few years far more digital expertise. So we've brought in XLab, set that up, and we're coming at it from that kind of perspective.
Great, thank you, Andrew. So let's get into it, as I'm sure the next 40 minutes will fly by quickly. The first question is, what is the impact of the move to virtual as part of the fight for a more sustainable event sector? What are both the challenges and the positives? Sam, do you want to take this one?
Happy to. Well, I think the first thing to say is, who would have thought the world of pressed pause? I mean, we've literally had to press pause. We've been forced into that situation. And I think it's a stark reminder that whatever we think about it and however we feel about it, the planet is going to have its say. It's shown that very clearly in the last few weeks. Well, we're working with a lot of organisations at the moment, and I think it's safe to say that moving to a more virtual way of working, whether it be office setup or whether it be the events, has been on their radar for a while. It's in their longer term business strategy. But what we've seen happening is that this situation has pressed go. It's accelerated, it's enforced change. People have had to adapt to it literally overnight. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges. We've got to move now. I don't think that virtual is ever going to be the substitute for live events, those sort of serendipitous conversations that just happen when you're dancing with someone or you're having a drink with someone. And people don't consume the content in the same way on a virtual platform. It has to be bite-sized. So I think those are some of the challenges that we've faced. In terms of the positives, oh my goodness, well, I've only got a couple of minutes, but we think about the environmental impacts here. We think about transport, massive environmental impact for events, materials, food, waste, energy, greenhouse gas emissions. Those are all eliminated. They are eliminated. So in terms of sustainability, that's fantastic. In terms of keeping our carbon emissions or global warming below 1.5 degrees, which is of course the other crisis that's pressing on us all at the moment, it's fantastic. I mean, that's very much a positive. So I was talking with one experiential company this morning, and he was saying that he's taken one live event over one day, they've spread it over 5 days, and they've saved the client 50%. So we're not just talking about environmental impact savings here or carbon savings, we're talking about monetary savings. I think the thing to say, I'll end on this, because the challenge now I think is we need strong leadership now more than ever. We cannot go back to business as usual. We cannot go back to using the planet in the way we have been. That cannot happen. The planet will have its say. So I just hope that there are some fantastically strong leaders here, and I hope there are some strong leaders listening in to that will really grasp that nettle and make the changes happen that we need to happen.
Great, thank you, Sam. And I agree, the world of virtual is not a full replacement for events, but we've been talking a lot about the human connection on our team, and just that's not a replacement, but hopefully we can balance all the incredible positives that you've mentioned to our environment and to sustainability with that human connection. Thank you. Next question is for you, Rick. What do you think the long-term impact of COVID-19 will be on the events relation to sustainability? Will the world be open to calls to protect the planet, or do we revert back to normal?
Well, look, there are already calls from society and businesses, big key business leaders, to create a green recovery plan, for the government to create a green recovery plan so as to leverage the investment in the recovery from lockdown and COVID. And some of the new habits formed from the behaviours and values that have been embedded into our daily lives, and continue them, whether it may be, we've come more used to working from home. They want more investment in cleaner travel infrastructure, more sustainable construction of buildings, better sustainable renewable energy provision. Minimize packaging has been something that consumers are increasingly sensitive to, and encouraging local sourcing of food. And obviously the retail sector is going through a huge change. So, on the basis that it takes about 66 days to form a new habit, based on sort of Lally's study, which I've looked into, and that's well respected. Or there's the 21-90 rule, 21 days to make a habit, 90 days to make it a permanent lifestyle change. So on that basis, in business, the new working practices that we've adopted and been forced upon us basically in some ways has opened up clients to engaging more, trusting more, and putting now budgets behind more virtual tech solutions that to deliver engaging live content, and hence by nature more sustainable events. They may in the past have either not wanted or needed to do it, but you know, necessity is the mother of invention. So now they're sort of, it's accelerated that engagement with the tech. It's accelerated the acceptance that it has to be adopted urgently, and they are now putting serious budgets behind it. The next step is really exciting one, which is into hybrid, because as physical audiences return, and they will do, to be discussed whether that's this year or next year, but that could be the watershed moment for the industry. Because that's the key then is to embed those new habits of working life that we formed into projects at the briefs and solution stage, rather than the more sort of standard historic approach of bolting on as an enhanced option in the pitch, which can be opted out of, which has been the approach of recent years, sort of pretty much across a lot of the industry. You know, another thing really is, you know, from a long-term perspective, I think it's really encouraging that, you know, COVID has boosted more open conversations with clients than you may have had before, with sort of together we're stronger, or we're in this together ideology, which is only beneficial for the industry to get closer to our clients, understand their challenges better, and create a solution accordingly. And another nice thing that's happened that I've noticed been a lot of industry forum and panel discussions recently is much stronger partnerships being prevalent across our industry amongst agency peers, suppliers, venues being more amenable to collaborating and leaving some competitive advantage issues at the door and trying to find solutions to this this new situation and the new ways of working, you know, than that we have done before. And I think that's a really healthy impact, if nothing else. So, you know, from my perspective, the downsides, you know, there is a need for perhaps a slightly saturated market that hadn't perhaps wholly embraced technology, with some slightly tired models that were a bit more traditional, have seen that they need to adapt to survive, and if they don't, they may not. And I think that's something that is a big wake-up call for some more traditional models in our industry that perhaps aren't adopting a more content, creative-led approach to strategically add value to clients' challenges to deliver messages. And that can only be a positive thing for those that want to adapt and then, you know, enhance their business model and make it more resilient, because this is really about resilience going forward for our industry. I think the only other thing I'd just like to add is there is a recession on its way. So all I've just said beforehand with the short-term challenges and adapting, and the longer-term sustainable models, you know, will effectively, you know, only encourage a more healthy industry and a more resilient industry going forward.
Great, thank you, Rick. Yeah, you make a lot of good points, and the rate of acceleration that we've all been witness to has been incredible to be part of, and the collaboration that you mentioned across industry partners, clients, and other agencies has also been a really positive part of this. Thank you. Question number 3 is for you, Nikki. What can we be doing to be more sustainable moving forward, and who is doing this right? Can you share an example of ideas or best practices that you've seen?
Yeah, so what we can do to be more sustainable moving forward is hopefully we will get back to the point of having face-to-face meetings and meeting in venues, although I do agree with Rick, you know, there's going to be more hybrid events. What we did, I can only talk from the perspective of IMEX, and what we did was to take very small steps looking at the sustainable development goals. We have got a green team within our team that look very carefully at all the sustainable products that we use and make sure that we try as much as possible to be plastic free. But what I would say is moving forward is look at the sustainable development goals and see what you can change straight away and what is more of a longer term project. There's a lot of quick wins out there, you know, with not using delegate bags, not using exhibitor catalogues and things like that. But also to work with venues. You know, a lot of these venues now have their own CSR policies, and is to find out what they're doing and try and work with them. And at IMEX, we worked with Messe Frankfurt on renewable energy, and we took that to the Sands and asked them to look at that. So you can take ideas from one venue to the next venue and try and get them to do that. And most importantly, it's your supply chain that you need to talk to. You need to pressurize them into giving you more sustainable products. You know, we've looked at our banners. You know, there's no UPVC banners anymore. You know, there's lots of things that you can ask your supply chain to do, and what that happens is it shows the way, and they can see that it's better for the environment. And so when they go out to their clients, they're offering more products. I think, yeah, and also the other thing is to work with associations like EIC or Meet Green. There's people out there that can really help you. But most importantly, I think is look at the Sustainable Development Goals. Who's doing it right? I think that we're trying very hard at IMEX, and that comes from the top coming down. You know, it's Karina's vision, and she's worked with our Green Squad. I think DRPG are brilliant because Dale is very, very passionate about sustainability, and that you can see that within his team and what he's trying to achieve with his venue. So I think that's as much as I can say on that from IMEX's point of view.
Yeah, we're all learning a million miles a minute in this world. And while there's definitely been some of the leaders, which you mentioned, and across the panel today, I think other people are catching up quickly because, I mean, we need to as part of the new world moving forward. Thank you, Nikki. Andrew, our last question before we go into the Q&A, the questions that people have submitted. What does a sustainable event sector of the future look like? What can we learn from this time, and how can we ensure we take it forward?
I think when we look at COVID, obviously, and put that lens on for a minute, I mean, it's going to put a lot of focus on welfare and well-being. I think that'll become a central thing, certainly in the near term being, I don't know, 12 to 18 months, couple of years, and frankly, beyond. There's no reason why, for all the reasons my colleagues here have just said, that this won't become a way of looking at the world. So I think that'll be a priority. I think it will, when you come to planning these things, you're going to be looking at organizations that have the integrity and the systems in place to make it safe, to put these things together in a sustainable way. So, I mean, if you just take, for example, again, using the COVID lens for a minute, you know, I think it'll be the hotel groups that, you know, are probably larger, will put in the robust systems in place to make sure they're safer. The same with venues, same with airlines, same with transport. All these things will start to matter a lot more in that kind of direction. And coming on to what have we learned, and I think Rick touched on it, I think the big one is that, you know, the public, and this really involves all of us. I mean, I think the public, government, and business ecosystems have all realized we can do stuff together. We can, you know, we can take on a crisis and in a very short space of time respond reasonably well. I mean, you can look at different countries and stuff and say how well they've done, but generally most people have rallied round across the globe, certainly where there's been decent leadership. And I think for that reason, there's a belief that one can take on the bigger challenges of climate change. You know, that you can marshal these things. So that's one of the building blocks. I think the other thing is, this has always been a problem for sustainability and climate, is actually being able to recognize it. We can see it on TV occasionally when it's in Australia or somewhere like that, but it doesn't always feel like it's in our backyard. Well, I live in West London, and I think if you live in Beijing right now, you can feel the difference. You know, less noise, less air pollution. It's really tangible, very noticeable. And that's hearing that from when I talk to people in California and so forth. It's very much that kind of world. So we can see the benefits of doing things differently. I think when it comes down to literal events, where will it go? I was actually having a chat only a few days ago with a big telecoms company, and they were, you know, they're beginning, I mean, everybody's nervous about going out there and doing things at the moment, and I think it's true it will end up going more towards hybrid. But actually, there's also a belief that, you know, the kind of going off to the big chest beating event actually how much longer was that really sustainable for? I won't name any events, but you know, some of those big ones have been kind of getting bigger and bigger, but louder and louder at the same time, without necessarily rethought to what are they really trying to achieve. So I think companies are taking this time out now to go and say, right, what am I trying to get from this particular event? It doesn't mean they won't go to it, but they might go to it in a different fashion. I think they'll go to it in a way where they can, for the time being at least, and I say, you know, 12 to 18 months, maybe a couple of years, whilst there is, until there's control over COVID, where you can control things more. So I think I might see something scale back. I think they will be looking towards more intimate, the conversation having the other day, I can sense it's heading off towards more intimate collaborative approaches. So really working with their customer ecosystem. We're seeing it now, it's happening already this. You know, it's not just going to be the event, it's going to be what am I doing before the event? You know, where are the discussion groups? Where are the online communities? All these things are going to get far more integrated. And then you will get to the virtual event or the virtual plus hybrid event or the, as we used to do it maybe. But these things are going to become far more connected, largely through digital engagements, digital experiences. So I think that's the kind of pivot. In terms of an industry, it does put, and we have this challenge, I'm not pretending we, you know, it's straightforward for any of us, but it will put a lot of emphasis on building the partnerships up or having the resources in-house as well to work in that world, work in that digital world, because there's quite a lot of complexity in it, that when you get around to systems integration to create these kind of, that kind of digital customer ecosystem. So that's, I think that's kind of where the pivot seems to be going for the time being. I think Rick mentioned it the other day, actually, it's an exciting time as well. I mean, it's got a human tragedy behind it for sure at the moment, and I don't think we can ignore that one coming along, but there's some good things that are coming from all of this. And the other one I heard is the speed at which it's all happening. You know, there's a lot of our clients getting stuff done in weeks rather than months. You know, this is another sort of positive to come out of it all. So yeah, those have been my thoughts on where we're heading.
Great, thank you, Andrew. And Sam, I can notice you kind of nodding along to Andrew's points and your perspective. What do you think a sustainable event sector looks like from your perspective?
I very much agree with what's been said here. I think in my mind, we kind of have to look at almost like starting from the virtual, starting from the remote and building in that face-to-face as and when it's needed, rather than start with the face-to-face and build in the virtual. It's almost like I kind of see it's flipped a bit. So I totally agree that when we're creating a bespoke environment for people to engage in, it's what does that bespoke environment look like? And I loved what's been, certainly when Rick was saying we've got to get this from the get-go, we have to incorporate, whether it's through our go, no go, through our pitch, through our tendering. I think it's incredibly important that as an industry, we understand how to communicate those benefits of almost like innovating the brief, if you like, through the lens of sustainability, not just in terms of reducing our operational carbon or our operational impacts, but how we as a creative organisation, creative specialists, can bring that brand purpose to life in that live event environment. So that essentially what we're doing is we're taking sustainability and we're building into the return on investment for our clients. We're looking at their brand purpose and saying, right, how can we now take this and make it something that's experienced by everyone? Like has been said earlier, people are investing with their time, they're investing with their money, they are seeing themselves as investors now, and that's the consumer as well. So we need to really think not just from an operational point of view, but also from an experiential point of view. And that's where we're going to excel. That's where we have the specialist skills to amplify that positive change.
Yeah, it's a great way of positioning it. Thanks, Sam. Rick, a question for you. Do virtual meetings have an environmental impact via data centers, and can they be measured?
Yeah, I mean, we've been looking into this. We're doing a lot of virtual and hybrid events and projects going forward, which we're very fortunate to be able to do. And they're not just enhanced Zoom calls or anything like that. They're a whole new approach to an experience that has, you know, in real life elements and in impact of content and other elements, which I won't go into now. But we're very adamant to demonstrate to clients the improvement from a sustainability and a minimizing of emissions perspective. It's clear from our research that there is limited accurate data and really hard to nail down how much, you know, a web page search or an internet search or an email does give on carbon footprint. But just to give you some examples, I think a search on a web page emits about 0.2 grams of CO2 per second. An email has an estimated carbon footprint of about 4 grams of CO2, where if you have like a large attachment of like, it can be up to like 50 grams. So, you know, from our perspective, we have about 10 to 15,000 emails coming through Smyle a day across 100 staff. So you times that by like, you know, 250 odd working days a year. Just by operating, we're emitting something like 13,000 grams of CO2, if my math serves me correctly. That's quite a lot. Now that's just operating, let alone then transferring that to what you have to look at, which is the type of data centers that are storing your data. Are they on a green cloud provider that the likes of sort of Salesforce and Google, I think, are adopting, and others are investing in these a lot more energy efficient, recyclable, renewable energy servers. So, you know, yes, there is a way of demonstrating quite clearly from a mandatory perspective that less travel, less materials used, less perhaps not locally sourced food, less power on an on-site perspective will reduce a lot of impact from a more physical event. But you know, virtual events do have an impact. Everyday work at home even has an impact, so I've tried to demonstrate. But there's no doubt that virtual and hybrid events will greatly reduce the impact from the actual physical environments, the travel elements, perhaps the waste of food and consumables and packaging and materials used for sets that are perhaps at the moment in some areas not necessarily reused, recycled, or built again to be robust enough to be used on a regular basis and not just constructed on a bespoke basis every time. So yeah, I think we're looking into quite a lot of research on this to make it clear to clients that, you know, to be credible in answering that question, it comes down to the simplicity of measurement. And that's a big part of sustainability. You cannot manage something and improve it without measuring it first. So even though these are guesstimations, I think it's really important to remember that one of the key parts of improving anything is you measure it to start with. Use that data from an audit and reporting perspective to analyze what you're currently doing, and then use that data to look at improvement in options. And obviously what's accelerated massively is, you know, if you actually had almost one of the more perfect examples of how to take the waste of a normal event setup in the old school version we did and minimize as quickly as possible the impact, it would be the fact that there was no travel, no food waste, not a huge amount of materials and consumables wasted on site and thrown away. That's what the virtual and the hybrid model has perhaps, you know, accelerated massively into a new model. So, you know, the jury's out on how we exactly measure this going forward, but I think general appreciation would be that it's a lot less impactful.
Great, thanks, Rick. And yeah, data is so key and instrumental in this equation moving forward and making sure we're tracking it. We have
a good point. Data centers, I think, consume some staggering, globally 12% of energy or something like that. They do suck up energy for sure. So you do need to do it from a sustainable source. It's a good point.
Thanks, Andrew. A question for Andrew. Do you think that Cost America systems you mentioned, or hybrid and virtual events, can be as profitable as physical conference have been up until now?
Yeah, I think they can be, actually. I think they are. They do have there is a slightly different business model. You're harnessing different capabilities, whether it's, you know, TV broadcasts combined with webcasts and so forth. But ultimately, there's there's still a creative production involved in it. If you look at it from the point of view of the agency, there's still creativity, there's content, there's how it's planned and so forth. It's only to a certain extent, the platform that's changed. Instead of having a venue, you're into a virtual environment. So there's still an enormous amount that goes into that side of it, which thankfully does still use some of the skills we have. I know I mentioned earlier on, there are new skills we're having to bring into the business, but some of those previous skills we have still are very relevant in that respect. So yeah, there's definitely still money in it. It's not a case of, I think what it will bring in is it will bring in some other competitors from left field. I think we'll see a bit of that is already happening. We'll confront each other from time to time, I'm sure, but I think you'll find some new players coming in that will come purely from a digital background, for example, and they'll be a bit disruptive from time to time. So that's going to go on. Our world's going to become a little more complex in that regard, I think.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see all the different agencies changing and shifting their approaches and strategies. And yeah, I'm sure we'll all have fun together in the industry forward. Sam, a question for you. Rick mentioned we're heading into a recession. Changing to a sustainable model is often seen, is often seen as more expensive. And so when budgets are cut, sustainability goes on the back burner. Do you think this will happen again? If not, why?
Well, I sincerely hope it won't go on the back burner. I think the problem that we've had before is that sustainability has been viewed as being more expensive. It's a massive barrier to change. It's a huge misnomer. And I think it goes hand in hand with that sustainability has been seen as a bolt-on. It can't be. Like I said, we cannot continue using the planet as we have been. That must change. So, rather than sustainability being seen as a word, if you like, I think it has to be seen now as business in itself. It's become business in itself. And certainly, like I said earlier on, I'm speaking to clients of ours who are saving considerable amounts of money and getting comparatively similar ROI outcomes for their clients. We're talking about and in this particular situation, a 50% reduction on what would be a live event with the same deliverables. So I think it's synonymous. I think it's got to be, when we're looking at that triple bottom line, that people, planet, profit, it's very much about doing things better all around, including profitably, including for budgets. So it's synonymous with rather than against.
Thanks, Sam. And yeah, those numbers on savings are incredible. So hopefully we can keep that in the forefront moving forward so that we can ensure it's a priority for our clients and for our industry. Nikki, I don't know if you want to take this question. It's been said that smaller, up to 50 people and more local events will come back first due to the likes of Microsoft, Facebook, etc., publicly stating that they will not hold any large events until spring of next year. Do you think this is a good idea, and do you think this will continue?
I'm not sure whether I
yeah.
try to say whether it's a good idea. I mean, obviously, us having an exhibition that has 14,000 people to it, it's been tough for us, and yeah, we've had to pivot pretty quickly to create something different. And you know, I can't believe how busy we are at the moment trying to create something that puts people back, not necessarily doing business, but connecting, because the whole landscape's going to change in the next 6 to 12 months, and we can't predict what's going to happen, but we're pretty sure that not much is going to happen in the exhibition world for the next 6 months. But who knows, you know, they might find a vaccine, and you know, we can't predict that. But for sure, I think that we're going to have to change. I think, you know, the present model, we had a 5-year plan, and we've had to bring that forward very quickly. Hybrid events definitely going to be part of what we will be doing. Online, definitely something we need to look at. We've created Planet IMEX. It was a 6-week turnaround, and you know, it was a huge whirlwind. And I think that in the future, somebody, and like Andrew said, there are digital companies that are going to pop up, and they're going to create something that we haven't thought about yet. So I don't know what the future holds. We're trying to keep up with it. You know, we're a traditional trade show, and we do have content, so we do have other things to work with, but I don't know what the future holds. I just know that we're working hard to keep up there and become thought leaders and try very hard. And I think that's what everybody's got to do. And I think that everybody needs to work together.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Rick, do you want to add on that point?
Yeah, look, this is basically, will hybrid events be the future, perhaps longer term? Is it a good idea? Yes, because it encourages a manageable level of biosecurity within government protocols in the certain territories that they're holding the event. I think Berlin today announced, was it 500 people they allow? I can't quite remember the number, but it was significantly above 50, I believe, for gatherings. Whether that's deemed to be events or not is another matter. But to have hybrid events where there's a smaller number of people from a sustainability perspective, which is what this discussion is about, is obviously a lot better than flying in 500. You can still reach the other 450 people through a hybrid approach with a virtual audience, and perhaps you could then discover that maybe you want to add in, if you're a large organization, another 5,000 for a minimal extra amount of investment. So therefore you reach, what virtual can do, physical can't, and what physical can do, virtual can't. And onto the point made about tech agencies coming in, they do not deliver experiences, they deliver technical solutions. What we as an industry, as a creative industry, which is what we are, need to do is partner up with those that can support the tech development, but we still lead on the experience of delivering content that is engaging enough to encourage behavioral change. That's what we do. So if a hybrid approach where there's a small number of people leveraging the tech to encourage a lot wider audience, to the point of the budget as well, you can leverage a same or smaller budget where there are flights and hotels and other elements to a lot wider audience, still engage locally face-to-face as required to encourage that more networking and interactive physical experience. And you should be able to, if you create it in the right way, as a creative industry should, with the right tech, these are not Zoom calls. These are interactive experience with whole different levels of hackathons and gamification, team building, rest periods. These are little chill out well-being areas. There are lots of ways of enhancing this so that the virtual audience that can be magnified with minimal extra budget can actually engage and benefit from the content versus what they used to do in the past, while also a physical audience actually getting the added benefit beyond just the virtual delivery of the content to that physical networking. So is it a good idea from a sustainability perspective? 100%, for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, there will be impact on other areas of the industry. And there's a question, I think, coming in about DMCs, venues, obviously, will potentially be impacted depending on their capacity and what the individual region they're in. Travel is an obvious one that is suffering massively, but from a sustainability perspective, which is what this conversation is about, yes, physical will, if it's reduced, will encourage hybrid, which will minimize the impact of historic larger scale events.
Great, thanks, Rick. Does anyone else have anything to add on that point, Andrew?
I mean, I think the hybrid event is a nice way of getting everybody to get back out, and for the bigger things to come along later on. I think it's going to be a process of, getting one's confidence back up. I don't mean ours, but the public at large that get invited to these events, they need to, they need to come on board. So I think it has its role to play. I do think I do know some people from outside our ecosystem that are in the digital space doing a lot of brand work that are looking at coming into this space. So I think we'll see whether there will be competition. I mean, I definitely agree that there's a role for us to play on the experiential side of it and that creative side of it, but there may be some that can come along there that will certainly blur the lines on occasion. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at on that one.
Great, thank you. And yeah, there's a question, as Rick mentioned, coming in about, how do you think particular cities are going to survive that specifically focus on the event sector? for instance, Cannes, Barcelona, and the like. So much of what the event has to offer is based on the location. Nikki, I don't know if you want to take that one.
Sorry, I've had myself on mute because my puppies have decided to go crazy now. With the cities, I think that it's important for us, you know, to try and help them. And what we're trying to do at the moment is come up with ideas to give them the opportunity to maybe talk to the buyers really about what they're doing health and safety wise and making people feel comfortable. I mean, like I said, we're in this state at the moment where we're taking a month out now to just try and figure out how to help the industry, because we feel very responsible as a trade show for this industry. We want to try and help them, and we want ideas about how we can make something interesting and special and drive the buyers back to these destinations, whether it's virtually or whatever. So I just don't know the answer of what's going to happen to those. Andrew?
Yeah, no, the view of cities is a really interesting one, actually, because I think, you know, places that haven't had it too badly could do okay. I was chatting with somebody from Malta the other day. They've had very few people die from COVID over there, for example. You know, maybe they've got, you know, whereas Italy has obviously had a tough time, we have for that matter. So you may find some places initially are going to be more popular to go to. I know if I was probably going to go and do a holiday, I just happened to have come back from New Zealand, but I would probably put New Zealand down right now as somewhere you could go and consider yourself pretty safe when you get there. So I could see that. I would, you know, it's stereotyping, but, you know, the Germans are brilliant at implementing regimes to do things, you know, if they say they're going to do something and deliver to a standard of hygiene, you can probably 100% tick them at the top, and the Japanese at the top of your list of who's going to do that kind of thing. So I think there is some, you know, what I would say with Cannes and Barcelona, for example, I love those cities. They're two of the favorite cities on the planet. They're fantastic, but, you know, they haven't got the greatest hygiene always. So, I mean, they need to work on their public image, I would say, and their restaurants and their, you know, and the facilities they have out there, if they want to convince the world.
And
I think they need the support, you know, from people as well. And it's not just the fact that people are going to fly into these countries. It's you know, social distancing and the cost that it will be for an event there. You know, we're not going to be able to put lots of people on a bus. You're going to have more buses, and you know, if it's a meeting, they've got to have 2 meters apart. So everything's got to be bigger and better, and you've got to use more of. So in the end, it's not very sustainable to put events on at the moment in places like that, because you just need so much more protection.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. Just noticing the time and trying to keep us on track. Claire, I don't know if there's any other questions or if you wanted to wrap things up.
Hello, sorry, clicking the wrong buttons. Yeah, no, that's it for questions now. So yes, happy to finish. We are 1 minute ahead of time, so that's very, very good timekeeping, Megan. Well done. Thank you all very, very much. I would like to say, just to make you all feel great, this has had the highest retention of participants of any one we've done. So the drop-off has been nil. So well done. It kept everybody interested. Thank you so much. And just a reminder to everybody, the session is recorded. It'll be available on our website tomorrow afternoon. And it just remains for me to thank Nikki, Megan, Rick, Sam, and Andrew. Thank you very much for your time and for your input today. Bye for now.
You're welcome.